Okay. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Have attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. All right. Go ahead and have your notes out. We're going to be continuing page 3, Latin America. Okay, we did Canada. We looked at the situation in Canada, and now we're going to turn our attention to Latin America. We're also going to turn our attention to the Mexican-American War. Okay? You guys with it? Masks? Okay. Are you like talking some foreign language to me? Oh, at least I knew it was foreign. All right. Okay, we're ready. Are you guys ready? Next time we get together on Friday, ladies, we'll be reviewing, and your test on this unit, 60 points, is going to be on Tuesday of next week. It'll be the last class that we have together. It'll be your exam. And then at the end of the day, on Tuesday, that will be the end of your last full day. The next day you'll come to school for just 2 periods. A day for your first and second period exams. And then the next day, on Thursday, you'll come for B day. Just first and second periods, and you'll have your exams in there. It's a very good question. I think I've addressed that before, but it's worth identifying to someone the answer to that question. And I'm going to pose that question at this point. Blake, what's the answer? How many of you guys agree with that statement? That the test on Tuesday of next week is going to be over just this unit? How many guys would say, no, it's over everything in the semester? As it turns out, it's good that we actually covered that. It's over just this unit. Okay? Will there be plenty on the test? Oh yeah, there'll be plenty. Okay? But just the material that's on this unit. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so we're not going to be doing like the American War of Independence, but we're doing Constitution and all the other things that we've got coming on here. Okay, does that make sense? Textbooks, you can be bringing those in. As far as preparation, it may help you some, but mostly what you're going to need to focus on is your notes, okay, that we're doing in here in class. And, yeah, okay. Does everyone have spare? You can pull, yeah, go ahead, pull it up. Do you have a mask? Okay, thank you. Yeah, awesome. And it's fresh. Okay, Jordan, thank you. This is fresh. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, come to class prepared. All right, you guys ready? All right, let's do this. Latin America is going to go through some very interesting situations with respect to their early nations. We're going to start with Brazil. Here we go, Brazil. In South America, they gained their independence from Portugal, and it was kind of a weird deal. Was there a massive, do you remember this, Spencer? Was there a massive like revolution in Brazil when they gained their independence? Or was it kind of an inside family job? Inside family job. So for example, make sure you have this written down. This is a little bit of a recap. The first leader of independent Brazil is Dom Pedro I. So, Spencer, what was the relation of this first emperor, Dom Pedro I of Brazil, to the Portuguese royal family. He was the prince, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was like I was saying, it was an inside job. The Portuguese realized that all those Spanish colonies were gaining independence in Latin America, so they figured, well, if you can't beat them, let's join them. And so they set that up so that there wasn't going to be massive changes, or so they thought. Easier said than done. Let's talk about some of the challenges in Brazil, as well as the neighboring South American countries like Argentina and Uruguay and Paraguay, as well as we'll talk about Venezuela. Okay? First of all, Brazil, very big country. Sometimes Brazilians will tell you God is a Brazilian because Brazil is so special, God therefore must be a Brazilian. I don't know. I mean, that seems like a pretty bold statement. 3 million square miles, great potential. Write that down. Massive potential. If you go to Brazil in modern times, they're like, we want to show that we're a big country, that we're on the world scene. One of the ways of doing that is to successfully carry out hosting a major sporting event. Raise your hand if you can tell me what would be a major international sporting event that would be like really cool that you could host. Football? You mean American football? You mean like soccer? What is the most important international soccer or football, because everyone else calls it football, what is that major tournament that takes place every 4 years? Do you know the name of it? Raise your hand if you know the name. Oh my gosh, here we go. If you play, how many of you guys play soccer? Have played soccer at some point in time in your life? Okay, maybe when you were younger. All right. So what is the major international tournament called? Very good, the World Cup. Brazil hosted successfully the World Cup. Although, if you ask the Brazilians themselves, we got a slide for this, they would say it wasn't such a successful hosting because when they host it, you know, they're good at soccer. They have won more World Cups than any other country. They are awesome. But they weren't the year that they hosted it. Oh my gosh, they got spanked. Anybody know? Did anybody watch that? Are you guys too young? I mean, it's typical soccer scores like 0-0. I like soccer. That's exciting. Other people find it boring. You know, soccer fans look at basketball and go, oh, that's boring. Oh, they scored. Oh, they scored. Oh, they scored. But in the game that Brazil played against Germany, they gave up 7 goals. Boom, 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 boom. I've never seen so many people cry so much in such a short period of time. They cried. Okay, yes, they did. Yeah, it was embarrassing. We've never hosted an international student from Brazil since then. I think they're just embarrassed to leave the continent, to leave the country. I'm only halfway joking because we've had Brazilian exchange students, and they're big fans. And it was embarrassing. And I think, actually, that we may get some international exchange students here next year, which is really cool because typically they take a lot of 10th grade classes. Yeah, question? Really? Huh. Bull riding, yes. And they hosted the Olympic Games. They hosted the Summer Olympic Games. They were able to pull that off. So, well done, Brazil. They generally have, and you can write this down, an optimistic attitude, major natural resources, mining. You can grow a lot of sugar there, which, of course, what did they bring into Brazil in massive numbers? We've already covered that. African slaves. Yeah, so there's a huge percentage of the population who have the descent of African slaves. Okay? And slavery in Brazil lasted, I want to say, the longest of any other country in the world. You can put this down if you haven't written it down before. 1888 was when slavery was abolished in Brazil. Okay, so we'll look at the factors because it's kind of like when this guy came into power, was that a big change? No, there's going to be a lot of times in Brazil where they're going to be looking around going, let's not change. And so if your system of agriculture involves slavery, you're not going to get that much changes. Nevertheless, okay, so in 1822 when they became independent, 4 million people, you can write that down, half of whom were slaves at the time. Okay? Half of whom were slaves either of African birth or African descent. Because remember, the British, they're starting to shut down the transatlantic slave trade. So here's Dom Pedro. He's going to be the emperor from 1822 until 1831. So we're going to talk about some things going on in Brazil that is going to lead him to leave the job. 1831. 1822 to 1831. Okay? He's going to have some challenges on the job. Now, as an emperor, when typically does the emperor's job finish? When he dies. Then who gets the job? The son. Why the son? They did. I mean, if you look at history and so forth, you typically have that. Although, have we had some examples of females that managed to get into the throne that do a decent job and can handle the responsibilities? Who? Queen Elizabeth of what country? England, yeah. Yeah, she did a pretty good job. Catherine from Russia, who married into the Russian royal family. She took care of her nitwit husband pretty quickly and managed to run the country with an iron grip. So, but you're right. Typically, you would expect the throne to go to the son. And you can put this down. Already, spoilers. In Brazil, the throne is going to go from Dom Pedro the First. Ooh, this is a tough one. Robert, what do you suppose the next emperor or king or whatever of Brazil is going to be called? Oh my gosh, you're a genius. Dom Pedro the Second. And I've got a picture for him up here. That might surprise you a little bit when we ultimately get to him. But it is actually weird because his daddy wasn't dead. His daddy done fled the country. And Dom Pedro the Second would be the ruler after his dad left, which is kind of weird, right? Because Dom Pedro the First, his dad wasn't dead. His dad was the king of Portugal. All right, so here's the deal. One of the challenges that they're going to have in Brazil, write this down, is a challenge of strong central government or decentralized government. It's the same issue we looked at in the United States. Strong central government with a national government that has that is in a capital city and has a lot of control over different parts of the country versus decentralized or more local government. Okay? There you get some tension. Do you recall, Reese, after the Constitutional Convention in the United States, was the American governmental system more centralized or less after the Constitution came in? Really? The 13 states had more power? Look up here. Who was the first president of the United States? Thank you very much. Was he a powerful central figure of the United States government? No, because who had the real power under the Articles of Confederation? The states. It was decentralized. The states were in control of various different things. Was that working out very well? No, they were like ready to go fight each other in all kinds of different wars. So the United States became more centralized. Not entirely, but more. Who was the first president of the United States under a stronger national government under the Constitution? Everyone knows George Washington. Hello, yeah. Yes, go quick. Okay. So yeah, we've got that issue here. And Dom Pedro, write this down. Dom Pedro wants more centralized power. Under who? The first one. We're not getting to the second one just yet. Himself. He's like, I'm the emperor. Of course I want to have more power. But he's fighting forces because a lot of different folks in different parts of Brazil are looking around going, where are you, emperor? You're at some capital city. I don't want to be like taking orders from you. So that's one of the things that is going on in Brazil early on in his rule. And he's getting frustrated with these guys. They have this like constituent assembly, all these elected officials and so forth, and they're like trying to weaken his power. And he says, The heck with that. Write this down. 1824. He dissolves the assembly. Not with acid or anything, but he just like tells them all to go home. And he drafts a constitution, him. And guess what that new Brazilian constitution says? Assembly, the elected assembly. What do you think? What do you suppose that new constitution says that he had written on his behalf?
I'm pretty sure that constitution is going to involve a lot of centralization
Yeah.
and more executive
Yeah,
power.
more power for himself. Write that down. More power for himself. So that's it, right? He gets all the power. The only people who get a vote are the people who are really wealthy. Go ahead and write that down. The only people who can vote are the really, really wealthy ones. So, problem solved, right? Wrong. Rebellion breaks out. In the northeast part of Brazil, rebellion. Some of those folks up there do not like listening to some big Dom Pedro who thinks he's all powerful and he can just like write up a constitution and tell everybody what to do. So they break out in a rebellion. The first one, yeah, we're still talking about the first one, okay? So the first one's right in here. So we got this rebellion breaking out in the northeast. And if you're the all-powerful, you think, emperor of Brazil, what are you going to do when a rebellion breaks out? Very good. What if you can't stomp it out by yourself? Are you going to call for help? Are there other countries out there in the world that have the military means and navy to help you out? Can you think of one in particular that's got a pretty good navy? Elliot, what's got a pretty darn good navy if they agreed to help you out? Absolutely, write it down. Britain. And actually, in this particular situation, not only does Britain help, let me double check on this one, France helps out too. This is after the whole Napoleon thing is all done. So Britain and France, they come out, they help, ships, mercenaries, they put down the rebellion. Way to go, Dom Pedro. You just crushed a rebellion. And the British are like, happy to help out. Are they? Or do they want something in return? They want something in return. Okay? And the British are all about trade. So here's what the British say to Brazil. Hey, Brazil, we're the British. And you charge taxes on our stuff when it goes into Brazil. What do you call a tax? Very good. Tariff. You learned that one like the first week. So what do you suppose the British want from Brazil with respect to tariffs? What do you think? Higher tariffs or lower tariffs? Lower tariffs, because then British stuff could sell for cheaper in Brazil, and then the British companies are like really, really happy about that. So they get that. Britain gets preferential tariffs. They get lower taxes on the stuff that they're going to be selling to Brazil. And Dom Pedro's like, well, yeah, I guess it was worth it. Okay? And here's something else that the British want. Isn't this special? The British want Brazil to promise to end slavery. Oh, isn't that nice? Because you know that the reason why the British ended slavery was because they felt slavery was bad and a really nasty way of treating people, right? Was that entirely it?
No.
That was William Wilberforce's motivation, and among others. But part of the reason that the British want it from Dom Pedro and are going to get this promise is because which is cheaper? Which is cheaper to do? Which is cheaper to do? If you've got a plantation, you're growing sugar, which is cheaper? Buy slaves, work them, or pay day wages to workers? Buy slaves. It's cheaper. So if your cost of producing the sugar is cheap, the Brazilian sugar can be pretty cheap on the international market. Do the British grow sugar as well? Yes, in Jamaica, among other places. So the British are like, for competitive reasons, we don't want Brazilian sugar to be that cheap. So Brazil, we want a promise. And Brazil says, yes, eventually we will get rid of slavery. And that was in the 1820s. How long did it take for that promise to be fulfilled? Yeah, like 60 some odd years. Yeah, so it's kind of like, I'll get around to it. How many of you guys got siblings that sort of like promise to get around to something, but that's sort of like an indefinite kind of a period of time and so forth? Okay, do you count? How many of you guys are that person that, on certain occasions and so forth, yeah, you're like, I'll get around to it. I'm working on it. Yeah. Anyway, as it turns out, put this down. Some of the people in Brazil are like, yeah, way to go, Dom Pedro. You are just too much friends with the British and you're doing everything. You're too dependent on the British. We don't like that. Okay? Is that what's going to be his downfall? No. We're going to see that he's going to get himself into a war. Okay? Yep. Yep. Okay. Okay. You're leaving. Addie or Maddie? That was you, Maddie. Okay. All the way here. And we're recording. So we'll have this posted tonight. Okay? All right, so here we go. There's going to be a fight. Okay? 1825. The fight begins in 1825 while Dom Pedro is the guy in charge of Brazil. And it's going to have to do with this area in the Rio de la Plata basin. So we got this river going up through here. You remember the river with the big massive falls that you saw in the film, The Mission? Well, that territory right here, part of it is Brazilian, part of it is Argentine, and then there's this area down here that now is identified as Uruguay. Well, the Brazilians called it the Cisplatin Province. Write it down. The Cisplatin Province. And they wanted it. They want that territory. Who's going to be fighting with them over that territory? Argentina is. Now, officially at that time, they were known as the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata. Eventually, they're going to be known as Argentina. So they get into this big, huge, massive fight here. Brazil versus Argentina. By the way, is that a real rivalry, Brazil versus Argentina? Do they still fight wars today? Not so much. Do they have competition? Yes.
They resolve it on the soccer field.
On the soccer field. And you know one of the worst things about the defeat to Germany that one year while Brazil was being defeated in the semifinals?
1945?
No, this was like 2006 or something like that. Anyway, I got the slides. Argentina won their semifinal match. And it could have been that Argentina would have won the World Cup on Brazilian soil. Didn't work out that way. The German team was really, really good. Cisplatin Province. And if you look at your bullet points, there it is. Third bullet point. Cisplatin Province. The Cisplatin War between Brazil and Argentina. And Brazil's going to lose in 1828. A 3-year war. Brazil, they lose. What is going to be the result of that? The creation of a new country, Uruguay. Really? Yes, Uruguay. In fact, let me back up a little bit here. That is kind of a creepy slide here. There's the flag of Uruguay. In fact, let me go over here so we can get a little bit of a sense. We have Brazil, we have Argentina, we have Uruguay, we've got Paraguay. We're going to be talking about them a little bit too. And then where's Venezuela? We'll be talking about those guys as well. Here is Jose Gervasio Artigas. Let's just say this about Jose Gervasio Artigas. 1828. Got that? 1828. Who is going to be the lead fighter getting the assistance from Argentina against the Brazilians that ultimately will lead to Uruguayan independence? That guy right there, Jose. Okay? Jose Gervasio Artigas. He gets started actually all the way back in 1811. Okay? And in the various different machinations and fights going on, ultimately leading to this Cisplatin War, where Uruguay is going to declare its independence, and with the help and support from Argentina, is going to fight Brazil. And who did we say won that war? Yeah. Argentina. And what country is going to be created? And who's going to be the first leader of independent Uruguay? Anybody? Artigas. Yeah, that guy right there. Artigas. Okay? So now it's like, oh, well, that's where that country came from. Well done. Uruguay. It's kind of a smallish country when you think of it. It does have an advantage because it is on the coast. I'm not sneeze. And on the coast is good. Try not to sneeze. Okay? On the coast is good as far as like trade is concerned. Okay? What's going to happen to poor old Don Pedro after he loses the war, loses that territory? When did we say he ultimately loses power? 1831? So he's only got 3 more years. Dang, what is going to be happening in those final years? Well, I tell you what. Don Pedro is distracted in those last 3 years of his imperial rule in Brazil. He's distracted by what's going on in Portugal, because Portugal is going to be ready soon for a new monarch. And what family is that new monarch going to be coming from? Yeah, exactly, the whole thing. He's trying to make sure that his daughter is going to end up in the royal position in Portugal. So he's like, I need to make sure that my daughter is going to become like the next monarch back in Portugal. And I've got all these hassles in Brazil. I don't know. Maybe what I should do is just get out of town. And he does. There's actually street protest in Brazil. He's not that popular. And he decides maybe for the continuation of the family rule, it shouldn't be me. So, here we go. April 7th, 1831. On April 7th, 1831, Dom Pedro abdicates. This is an important word you should know. Abdicate. Hannah, what do you suppose abdicate means? Does that mean stay on the job? Yep, quit the job. It means quit. Okay? Abdicate. So if you're in a royal position as an emperor or a king and you abdicate, you quit. So he abdicates, gets on a boat, goes back over to Europe, to Portugal. And who does he leave in charge? I already gave you the answer. His son. And what was his name? Dom Pedro II. All right, let's take a look at Dom Pedro II. There he is. How good are you guys at guessing ages? I think that was done about the same time that he actually, like, his dad left and left him in charge. Did somebody say 5? You're right. Write that down. Very good. 5 years old. He was 5 years old. Do you guys have any siblings that are like 5 years old? Close to that? Would you leave them in charge of the house? Let alone a country? But he's king at age 5. All right, now help me out here. Somebody volunteer. Yes? Yeah, you're volunteering. Oh, help me out. Answer this question. Brazil's got a 5-year-old in charge. I mean, seriously, is a 5-year-old in charge? Give me some details. It's like, what's really going on? What is that person called? Someone who runs the country until this guy's old enough. You remember that one? Regent, very good. Regent. R-E-G-E-N-T. Regent. Right?
Wait. So you're saying someone else is going to roll until Dom Pedro II available?
Old enough, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, some of you guys might remember Peter the Great of Russia. Peter the Great, I think he took over his country when he was I'm not even sure if he was a teenager yet. They're like, no, he's going to have a regent. Get this. His regent was his older sister. And when I think he hit about 16, 17, I think he looked at his older sister and said, I'm in charge now. Louis the 14th also had a regent. And Dom Pedro II, he's got a regent. He will actually come onto the throne. Oh, I love this one. When is old enough? 6? Raise your hand if you think 6 is old enough to run a country. 7. Mature enough. 8? 8? 8 years old? Okay, 8 years old. All right, 9. 10. 11. 12. 12? You're like, come on, 12. Were you capable of like running some serious enterprise at age 12? 13? 13? Okay. How old are you guys? 15? 14? Is that old enough?
No.
We got to say 14.
You have to be 15. That's when it's understood to be old enough.
Says who?
Says the way that
Well, here we go. I'm stopping here. Write it down. At age 14, he takes over. Yep, age 14. So in 1840, he will come on fully empowered at age 14. So, I mean, he's kind of like, he's in training for, I don't know, what is that like, about 9 years? Yeah, you know. He's getting ready to be in the position. And as it turns out, write this down, the training went pretty well for Dom Pedro II. Yeah, it did. Because when he comes in to be the ruler, he's not going to make some of the same mistakes that his dad did. He's not going to just sort of arbitrarily go, I'm just going to write the Constitution and give myself all power, because that would really create rebellion and discontent. He actually decided, write this down, to give more control to the provinces, to share power more. You got that? You writing that down? So, Keith, would Dom Pedro II be more of a centralized or a localized ruler? Nope. More power to the local areas. Okay? And the locals are going to like that pretty well and so forth. He's going to be try and be very discreet, try and work with the members of Parliament or the Assembly and so forth. And here's the kicker. He's going to rule till 1889. Bless you. His dad abdicated in 1831, so when he was 5, and then he got fully in charge when he was 14 years old in 1840. So he was in charge of his country for 49 years. I mean, think about that. 1889. Yeah, 1889. Let me double check my notes here, and I believe the answer is, I think he left. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he left the country because some stuff is going to be happening. So let me identify the kinds of things. But I mean, if you think about almost 50 years ago, what would be 50 years? 1972. Oh my goodness, that would be like Richard Nixon, as a teenager, is still in charge of the country. And I'll tell you what, you know who actually became a United States Senator in the 1970s? Joe Biden. Yeah, so he's one of our oldest presidents, but he didn't start out as the all-powerful executive. This guy did start out as the all-powerful. Well, he power shared, so he was smart that way. All right? His biggest challenges, though, as we've already identified, are going to be dealing with other countries. Write it down. Argentina is going to be, as we've seen already, Argentina is going to be a problem. Argentina was in part the ruin of his father. Argentina was the one that helped Uruguay gain its independence. Argentina is going to be ruled predominantly by, let me get my notes here, this man, Juan Manuel de Rosas. Very serious look. He was a serious leader. He came to power in Argentina in 1829. Rosas. He was a man, he was a cattle rancher, and he said, I support power to the provinces as opposed to power in a central government. Okay, you got that? He wanted power to the provinces. He's a cattle rancher. He didn't live in the city. He lived out in the countryside. And he led his forces and became in charge. So he's, let me see, he's a Creole. He's wealthy. He's a military leader. What do we call that? Caudillo. Very good. He is a caudillo, a military officer, a leading Creole, and gosh, what's he going to do when he actually gains power in 1829? He is going to be a powerful central ruler. All the way till 1852. 1852. And you're like, well, that's not as long as Dom Pedro II, but nevertheless, that's a pretty long stint. Okay? 1829 to 1852. And he is going to be ruling in his country, and he is like a dictator. And he's got some interesting peculiarities. In fact, some of it is just sort of like really annoying. And everyone around him knows this. He's the dictator, and they know that he really hates it when people wear a certain color. Or conversely, hello? Okay. Conversely, he really hates it. If he would walk around this, let's see if he can figure out this. He would punish you. He would punish you. Follow this. Let's see if you can figure that out. Raise your hand as soon as you can figure this out as far as the color. He would punish you, but he wouldn't punish you. He would punish you, but he wouldn't punish you. He would definitely punish you, but he's not going to punish you. Have you figured it out yet? He doesn't like, it's not so much the colors that he doesn't like, it's the color he does like. He likes red. Write it down. Rosas. He likes red. And so he expects you to wear red. It's kind of a peculiar thing, but yeah. I mean, he'll literally terrorize you if you don't wear red. He sees red if you don't wear red. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me just double check this. What is it that gets him into 1852? Hey, here we go. Yeah, 1852. By the year 1852, there is going to be another war in the area around the Rio de la Plata by 1852. And in this particular fight, Rosas is going to be fighting against Brazil, Uruguay, Britain, and France. The Brazilian, Dom Pedro II, figures out a way to get his old rival, Uruguay. They're going to be siding against Rosas, against Argentina, and they're going to get the Brazilians, they're going to get the French and the British to help out too. And here's another group of people from Brazil that are going to join the fight. In fact, they're promised. You join the fight. You join the fight. You join the fight. And you can have something you don't have now. Exactly. Very good. The slaves encouraged to join in the fight for Brazil in 1852 against Argentina. And if you fight, you go free. And it worked. In the Battle of Caseros. Do I have that one noted down? There we go, 1852. In the Battle of Caseros. Do you see that? Fourth bullet point. The Battle of Caseros. The winner? Uruguay. Brazil. Dom Pedro. He's much older now. The loser? Rosas.
Wait, okay, so Brazil, Uruguay, Britain, France were all against Argentina.
Yep. In that particular thing. So, Okay. Was it Elliot, not Ellie?
Not Ellie?
I know, I mean, like Maddie or Addie. I'm just like, my ears. Hello. You must stay. You may go. Okay? All right, very good. And so what's going to happen to poor Rosas? He's going to lose. And as often happens, it seems like in this particular thing, when you lose, you get kicked out of the country and sent on a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. He, this guy, goes to England, which I suppose is not too bad because if you look at the British military, what's their favorite color? Red. Red. Yeah, and there's red in the British flag, so I don't know, maybe he was okay, ultimately. And those slaves, many of them became free as a result of that particular episode. Okay? Well done, Rosas. Now we're going to get to the saddest one of all. Think back to that really horrible movie that I made you watch, set in Paraguay. The Native Americans who were pretty much decimated. Remember in the village? And they were pretty much all killed off. That was set in what is now Paraguay. Well, there's going to be a fight. And is referred to in history as the Paraguay War. Starts in 1865. 1865 is going to take 5 years. 5 years in Paraguay. The dictator. I always wonder about this because I got this image off the internet of this currency in Paraguay. And usually, you know, like Washington is on our currency. Woohoo! He's a hero. Benjamin Franklin is a hero. You know, Andrew Jackson won at the Battle of New Orleans and so forth. This guy's on the currency, so you'd think, oh, he must have had a lot of, you know, great military victories. He's all dressed up in a military uniform. As it turns out, it is going to be a 5-year disaster. His country is Paraguay, and if you look at sort of the orange part plus the kind of gray area around it, that was the size of his country when he started out. By the end of the war, he will lose a considerable amount of territory. Paraguay will become smaller because he loses. Here's the deal when you get into these South American wars. Is it better to have more allies or less? More. What are the potential allies you could have in that part of the world? Yeah, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, you know, bring in the British and the French, you know, perhaps. Well, let's see. What was his ally? None of them. None of them. Who were his enemies? Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. Sorry. And it's in the bullet point, too. His name is Francisco Solana Lopez. Lopez. Okay? I think I've got that on the bullet point there. Yep, Paraguay. Francisco Solana Lopez. The Paraguayan War, 1865-1870. They wanted greater access to the river system so that they could have access to the ocean and everything. And so they got into all these different fights. Brazil and Argentina are on the same side, fighting against poor Paraguay. Uruguay is fighting against Paraguay. Paraguay lost. They lost half of their population. A third of their territory, massive amounts of territory, half of their population.
Well, it's like there are only like 4 people in Paraguay.
Well, no, there's more people. You know,
It's like losing half of like.
and we saw, and it's interesting because, like, I mean, they still have their capital city, Asuncion. That was the city that was portrayed in the movie, The Mission, right? That was the sort of developed city and so forth. And the Guarani population, I mean, they're all enslaved or like descendants and so forth. They're all mixed in with the regular population. It's a bit of a disaster, okay? And in this particular war as well, Brazil gave freedom to slaves who fought on behalf of Brazil against poor Paraguay. Sucks to be Paraguay. Sorry, Paraguay. You've learned about Paraguay twice. The death of the Guarani and the death of half the population during the Paraguayan War. Not much fun. Let's go to the north. We're going to wrap up here in South America. We're going to go to the north. Remember this guy, Simon Bolivar, the one who helped gain independence for Gran Colombia, and ultimately Gran Colombia didn't work out very well. He wanted to be in charge of Gran Colombia, but ultimately he was tossed out of power by 1830. Poor Simon Bolivar. Just a reminder, because we covered him before, by 1830, he's done. Gran Colombia breaks apart to Colombia. And Venezuela. Did things really settle in Venezuela after Simon Bolivar is no longer on the scene? The answer is not really. Okay? Here's some dates. 1830 till the end of the century, 1899. 1830 to 1899. What is that about? 70 years almost? 69 years? Lots of caudillos, lots of military rulers. And of course, if you're a caudillo and you're on a horse and you've got a military background and you take charge, you call yourself a president. They had 41 presidents during that time period. They did not last very long. 1830 to 1899, so till the end of that century. Venezuela goes through all kinds of upheaval. 30 major insurrections. 1830 to 1899. 41 presidents, 30 major insurrections. Kind of unstable. If you go to Venezuela today, it's actually kind of sad. Yeah, they have like a dictator that is not very interested in sharing much in the way of power and so forth.
30 major insurrections?
Yeah, 30 major insurrections. And they keep relying on caudillo after caudillo after caudillo to put down their insurrection. But then another insurrection is led by another guy that was a caudillo. Anyway, this is going to be one of the challenges of Latin American countries. Okay? And it's not necessarily going to work out in the long run. How about, let's pause here for a moment. For your entertainment, to appreciate what the Brazilians and the Argentines and the Uruguayans think about much of the time, because sometimes it's like, oh, our government's corrupt, and this is crazy, and this is bad, but sports! Sports! And the greatest sport players ever. This is Pele. He was playing when I was a kid. He's good. This is Maradona. He played for Argentina. He's good. Who's better? Brazil's? They were different time periods. Do you want to see? Do you want to make an evaluation? All right, let's go ahead and make an evaluation. I've got a video here, right here. Let's take a look. Maradona or Pele? That's Maradona. It's pretty good. Can you do that? Can you juggle the ball? How many of you guys are pretty good at soccer? You can juggle the ball. Yeah? Pele, he can head the ball. Keep it up, up, up. Pele make you look foolish. Good Pele. Oh, it's good. Okay, now Maradona. Nice angle. He's in the right place. Poof. Pele played on 3 World Cup Brazilian victorious teams. Oh, nice angle. This one is just embarrassing. Kicking it right between the guy's legs. Ah! He committed. I hope I don't get copyrighted on this music. Are you making an evaluation? Because we're going to have you vote. Who's the best, Pele or Maradona? You don't know? Watch. Is it Pele or Maradona? Maradona? Is that right? Oh, I don't know. Who's the best players now? Beckham's kind of like moved on. Who's the best ones now? These are old guys now. Boom. Who wins? Who wins? All right, let's see. For Pele. Hands up for Pele. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, Pele's won. Woo! Maradona. Yeah, sometimes Maradona, his career got a little bit dinged because like people would like hack at his legs and stuff. It's not very nice. Hack at his legs, you know, because they're like, he's moving all around. They're like, whatever, just kick him in the legs. You know, yeah, it's a penalty, but, you know, when the guy's on the ground. And if a soccer player is actually hit in the legs, what will he do? He'll fall on the ground. Oh. What if he's not actually hit, but maybe he wants to get a penalty called? Are you going to hit a leg? Oh, really? Are you saying soccer players just like fall on the ground? They flop on the ground in order to try and get the ref's attention and make a... Wow.
That's actually a great strategy for your country.
You just flop. Yeah. Anyway, so, well, here's the winner, actually, because they got the two together. Here we go. There is Maradona and Pele. They're older. They're going to do a header competition. Here we go. Do you know... Spanish? Five, six. I could do one. Oh! Or here's another contender for the prize. Because Uruguay, smaller population, but they've got Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez. You know about Luis Suarez? You know about Luis Suarez? See, sometimes he would be like, I'll fall on the ground because somebody hurt me. They hit me right in my teeth. How could they possibly hit you in your teeth? Because he's a biter. Look at this. He's a biter. He's been banned because he bites. He gets really frustrated.
He bit someone and then he's like...
He does it all the time. He got banned. Look at this. I'll show you the evidence. Here we go. Luis Suarez from Uruguay. Really good player, but he's a biter. I didn't bite him. Look, we got cameras all over the place, pal. I'm sorry, it's football. It happens. Yeah, I'll try not to bite you next time. Do we have biting in American boxing? Oh, look what he's doing to his arm! Oh! He bit his arm! Charlie, he bit my finger! He bit my arm! Luis, that hurts! Oh!
30 goals have earned him a
You
nomination
put...
as Player of the Year. For all the glory, thanks to this, the season already has its defining moment.
He's not going to do it again, is he? Oh, on the shoulder! Charlie! Luis bit his arm! His shoulder now. Oh my gosh! Oh, I hurt my mouth! I hurt my mouth. Yeah. So we go. Oh, yeah, sorry. This is the worst day ever in Brazil. Okay. Let me pause here for a moment because I think I've got this one here, right? Yeah, this was the crowd reaction. 2014, Brazil is hosting the World Cup. They get to the semifinal match against Germany, and Germany's very good. They're very good. Yeah, because she's going to react this way, and you're like, I don't know, how many of you guys are fanatics about something? You could be this person in the given situation. All right, well, this is about the entire country. He reacts this way when this event takes place. Here we go. All right. Oh! Germany scores 1! In Brazil! 2-0! Three! Drive for Germany! This is the first half, early in the first half. I told you they're crying. Somebody play defense. Oh, between the legs. That's embarrassing. 6-0. If you guys know soccer, you don't score 6 like that unless the other team really sucks, you know. Yeah. In the first half. Oh, wait, Brazil! Oh, there we go, it's a comeback. Not. Oh, they were mad. They wanted vengeance. All right, Mexico. Let's go. Back to the notes. Here we go. Mexico. Here we go. Mexico now fully independent, but they've got challenges. We're going to see the critical role played by the ultimate caudillo in Mexico. His name, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. We've seen him before. We're going to see him again. He's going to play some critical roles in the history of Mexico. He's the ultimate caudillo. He will serve as president. You ready? 11 separate times. The first time in 1832. Okay? So he's got military training, and he's an executive. He wants to run the country. Sometimes he's going to win, and sometimes he's going to lose. Okay? In 1834, he had some challenges. Oh, did you get the name? He's got a long name. Actually, his name is actually even longer than that. Just call him Santa Anna. Okay? Not Santa Claus. That's different. Okay? Santa Anna. All right, here we go. 1834. He's dealing with insurgencies, all right, in 2 different areas of Mexico. people are restless. They're trying to fight against the government control. I'll give you the